The colony ship Wanderer's Hope drifted through the darkness of space like a dying whale in a black ocean. Its engines had failed 3 days ago. The backup systems had failed 2 days ago. Now, 40,000 humans floated in the cold metal belly of a ship that was slowly becoming their tomb. Captain stood on the bridge, watching the life support numbers fall like sand through an hourglass. They had maybe 6 days of air left. Food would run out in 4, water in 3. He had sent distress signals in every direction, but this corner of the galaxy was empty. No human colonies, no trading routes, nothing but the cold stars and the silence between them. His first officer, a tired woman named, came to stand beside him. Her face was pale and thin from rationing. "The children are scared," she said quietly. "The parents are trying to hide it, but everyone knows. We're not going to make it, are we?" Did not answer. He could not lie to her. He was the captain. He was supposed to have answers, but he had nothing except the weight of 40,000 lives pressing down on his shoulders like a mountain made of guilt. Then the sensors beeped. Turned slowly, not daring to hope. A ship was approaching. No, not a ship. Ships. Dozens of them. Small vessels, nothing like the massive warships of the established galactic powers. These looked almost handmade, patched together from different metals, painted in soft colors of green and gold. Unknown vessels whispered, "They're hailing us." The flickered to life and saw his first. She was tall and thin, with skin the color of pale moonlight and large eyes that held a gentle sadness. Her voice, when she spoke, was like wind moving through tall grass. We have heard your cry for help. Why does your ship not move?" Found his voice. "Our engines are dead. Our systems are failing. We have 40,000 people aboard and we are dying." The woman was silent for a long moment. Then she turned and spoke to someone off-screen in a language that sounded like singing. When she turned back, her large eyes were wet. 40,000 lives, that is more than the population of our largest moon." She paused. "We are not a rich people, human. We are farmers. We grow food. We sing songs. We do not have warships or great technology, but we have food. We have water. And we have enough fuel to tow your ship to our moons where you can make repairs." Felt something break inside his chest. "Why?" he asked, his voice cracking. "You don't know us. We have nothing to offer you. Why would you help us?" The woman tilted her head like a bird trying to understand a strange sound. "Because you are dying," she said simply. "Is that not reason enough?" The ships attached towing cables to the Wanderer's Hope and slowly, gently, pulled the dying vessel toward their cluster of moons. It took 11 days. During that time, small shuttles docked with the human ship, bringing food, water, medicine, and blankets. They brought toys for the children. They brought seeds and small plants to help clean the air. They gave and gave and gave, asking for nothing. When the ship finally reached learned the terrible truth. They were preparing for their winter season, which lasted 3 years on their world. They had spent generations building up food reserves to survive it, and they had given half of those reserves to the humans. He confronted Elder Bora, the old woman who led the council. She sat in a simple wooden chair in a simple room, surrounded by paintings of flowers and fields. "You gave us half your winter stores," said, his voice shaking. "Your people could starve because of us." Bora smiled, and the wrinkles on her face made her look like kindness given physical form. "Perhaps, perhaps not. We will plant more. We will work harder. We will survive as we always have." She reached out and took his hand in her thin fingers. "You were dying, Captain. What else could we do?" Fell to his knees before her. He did not plan it. His body simply could not hold the weight of what he felt. He drew his knife, the old ceremonial blade his grandfather had given him, and cut his palm. The blood fell on the wooden floor of the elder's home. "This is an old human custom," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "A promise written in blood. I swear to you, Elder Bora, on my life and the lives of all 40,000 humans you saved today. Humanity will remember this. We will remember you, And when you call for help, no matter how many years pass, no matter how far we have traveled, we will come. We will answer." Bora looked at the blood on her floor, then at the human kneeling before her. She did not understand the ritual. Her people had no concept of debts or repayment. They helped because helping was right. They gave because giving was good. "That is a kind thought," she said gently, helping him to his feet. "But we want nothing from you, Captain. Go, repair your ship, find your new home, live well. That is all the payment we need." Nodded, but his eyes held a fire that Bora did not recognize. Humanity had a long memory. They remembered every kindness. They remembered every wrong. And this debt, this beautiful, terrible debt, would sit in their hearts like a seed waiting for rain. 300 years would pass before the rain came. But it would come. 300 years is a long time for most species. Empires rise and fall. Stars are born and die. Entire civilizations forget their own histories, but humans are different. Humans are strange. Humans remember. Deep beneath the surface of Earth's moon, in a chamber carved from ancient rock, there existed a place called the Hall of Debts. It was not a museum. It was not a library. It was something older and more sacred. Here, carved into walls of black stone, were the names of every species, every world, every single being who had ever shown kindness to humanity. And beside each name was a simple word: unpaid. The entry glowed with soft golden light. 300 years and it still glowed, waiting. In those 3 centuries, humanity had spread across the galaxy like fire across dry grass. They were not conquerors. They did not enslave or destroy, but they were everywhere. They built ships that could cross the galaxy in weeks. They made weapons that could crack moons. They developed medicines that could cure diseases other species had suffered from for thousands of years. And they remembered. Always they remembered. Admiral was 63 years old, but she did not look it. Medical technology had made age a suggestion rather than a rule. She had served in the Terran fleet for 40 years, rising through the ranks through a combination of brilliant strategy and absolute loyalty to her people. She had fought pirates in the Outer Rim. She had negotiated peace treaties with hostile empires. She had done things that kept her awake at night and things that let her sleep peacefully. On the night the message came, she was in her quarters aboard the flagship Eternal Vigil, reading reports about supply lines and patrol routes. Boring work, necessary work, the kind of work that kept the peace. Her aide lieutenant entered without knocking. His face was white as bone. "Admiral," he said, and his voice was shaking, "you need to see this." The message was 300 years old by human calendar. It had bounced through relay stations scattered across the galaxy, traveling through time-dilated communication networks until it finally reached Terran space. By the time it arrived, what it described had already happened. They were already burning. Watched the footage in silence. Her face did not change expression. Her body did not move. Only her eyes showed life, and what they showed was something that made step back in fear. The Dominion had come to space 6 months ago. They were an old empire, older than humanity's time among the stars. They believed in a simple philosophy: the strong take and the weak serve. They had conquered dozens of species. They had strip-mined worlds. They had turned entire populations into slaves. They had no weapons. They had no warships. They had only their farms and their songs and their gentle way of looking at the universe. They had sent messages asking for help, but no one came. The galaxy was full of empires who did not want trouble with the footage showed soldiers marching through streets. It showed farms burning. It showed children running through fields of fire, their screams captured by the recording devices and preserved forever in digital memory. It showed Elder, the great-great-granddaughter of the woman who had saved 40,000 human lives, standing before the commander with nothing but her words. "Please," she said in the recording, "we have done nothing to you. We have nothing you want. We are just farmers." The commander laughed. "You have labor, you have bodies, that is enough." In her hands clutched something old and faded. A flag. The flag of the Wanderer's hope, preserved by her family for 300 years as a reminder of the strange aliens who had cried when they said goodbye. "There are others," said, her voice steady despite her fear. "There are others who will not forget us." The commander struck her across the face. "No one is coming, farmer. No one cares about your kind. You are alone." The recording ended. Sat in silence for a long moment. Then she stood and walked to her window, looking out at the stars. Somewhere out there, 12,000 survivors were being transported to labor worlds. Somewhere out there, the ashes of a people who had given everything to save strangers were cooling in the wind. "How many ships do we have in active service?" asked quietly. Checked his tablet. 17,000 combat vessels, Admiral. Another 8,000 support ships. "Call them all." His mouth fell open. "Admiral, the Dominion has 40 star systems. They have been conquering for 10,000 years. Their military is—" "I did not ask about this," said, and her voice was soft as snow falling on a grave. "I asked you to call the fleet, all of it, every ship, every soldier, every weapon we have." She turned to face him, and her eyes were burning with something ancient and terrible. "They saved 40,000 humans when they had nothing, when we were nothing. They gave us half their food and asked for nothing in return. 300 years we have waited to repay that debt." She walked past him toward the door. "Where are you going, Admiral?" asked. Paused at the threshold. "To the Hall of Debts. It is time to change a color." In the ancient chamber beneath the moon, stood before the glowing golden entry that bore the name. She placed her hand on the cold stone. "We are coming," she whispered. "We are sorry it took so long, but we are coming." The galaxy was about to learn why humanity never forgot. The Galactic Council had existed for 50,000 years. It was a place where empires came to argue instead of fight, where trade deals were made, where the great powers of the galaxy pretended to be civilized. The council chamber was a massive dome floating in neutral space, large enough to hold representatives from over 200 species. Some of those species had been traveling the stars when humans were still learning to make fire. When word spread that humanity was mobilizing its entire fleet, the council called an emergency session. Something was wrong. Humanity had always been strange, but they were not warlike. They did not conquer. They did not threaten. They traded and explored and built and created. This sudden movement of military power frightened beings who had not felt fear in. Ambassador walked into the council chamber alone. She was a small woman with short black hair and eyes that revealed nothing. She wore simple clothes, no medals or decorations. Behind her, visible through the dome's transparent walls, over 3,000 human warships hung in the darkness of space like wolves waiting outside a village. The council fell silent as she approached the speaking platform. "Ambassador," said the High Speaker, an ancient being made of crystal and light, "we have called this session to understand humanity's intentions. Your fleet movements have caused concern among the member species. Please explain." Looked around the chamber slowly, meeting the eyes of beings from 100 different worlds. Then she spoke, and her voice was calm and clear. 300 years ago, when humanity was young and weak, our colony ship suffered engine failure in an empty region of space. 40,000 of our people were dying. No one came to help. No one except the... A murmur went through the chamber. Most species had never heard of the... They were too small, too unimportant, too peaceful to matter in the great game of galactic politics. "They gave us half their winter food stores," continued. "They towed our ship to safety. They nursed our sick and fed our hungry. They asked for nothing in return. When our captain offered to repay them, they said living well was the only payment they needed." The ambassador, a massive being with 4 arms and skin like dark metal, shifted in his seat. He knew where this was going. 6 months ago, the Dominion invaded space. They burned their farms. They killed their people. They took 12,000 survivors as slaves. His voice did not change, but something in the air grew heavy. "This is not acceptable." The ambassador stood, his voice booming through the chamber. They were conquered according to galactic law. They had no protection treaties. They had no allies. They were weak, and the weak belonged to the strong. This is how the galaxy works. This is how it has always worked. Smiled. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of someone who had been waiting a very long time for this moment. "You are right," she said. "They had no treaties. They had no official allies. They had only a promise made by a bleeding human kneeling on their floor 3 centuries ago." She paused. "But you see, that is enough. That is more than enough." She placed a small data chip on the speaking platform. "This contains targeting information for every military installation, every shipyard, every command center, every weapons factory, every defensive platform. We have been watching you for 300 years, Ambassador. We know where everything is." The ambassador's 4 hands clenched into fists. "You would not dare. The Dominion has 40 star systems. We have been conquering for 10,000 years. Your species has only been in space for 500. You cannot." "You have 72 hours," interrupted, "to return every survivor to there, alive and unharmed. After that deadline passes, we will no longer accept surrenders." Silence filled the chamber. Every being present understood what she was saying. This was not a negotiation. This was not a warning. This was a statement of fact. The High Speaker's crystalline form flickered with distress. "Ambassador, please. War between your people and the would cause untold destruction. Millions could die. Worlds could burn. Surely we can find a diplomatic solution. Perhaps reparations." "Reparations?" His voice cut through the chamber like a blade. "You want to talk about reparations for those gentle farmers who never hurt anyone, who gave everything they had to strangers because they believed kindness was its own reward?" She shook her head slowly. "The galaxy watched them burn. The galaxy heard their screams. The galaxy did nothing. And now the galaxy wants to talk about diplomacy." She turned to address all the species present. "Let this be a lesson. Let this be a story your children tell their children. When you are weak and alone, when you have nothing to offer and everything to lose, humanity will remember if you showed them kindness. And when the darkness comes for you, we will come too, not because of treaties, not because of trade, because a promise is a promise and our word is written in blood." She walked toward the exit, then paused and looked back at the ambassador. 72 hours. Use them wisely." The ambassador watched her go, then turned to his aides. "She is bluffing," he said, but his voice was less certain now. "Humans are soft. They talk big, but they do not have the stomach for war. They will negotiate. They always negotiate." He was wrong. 72 hours passed, and not a single was returned. And then the human fleet began to move. In command rooms across 40 star systems, officers watched in disbelief as thousands of human warships jumped into their space simultaneously. They appeared everywhere at once, like ghosts materializing from the darkness between stars. Admiral's voice echoed through every communication channel. "Your time is up. Remember this day. Remember that you were offered mercy and chose to laugh, because what comes next you brought upon yourselves." The galaxy held its breath, and humanity began its terrible work. They had ruled their corner of the galaxy for 10,000 years. They had crushed rebellions. They had destroyed fleets. They had made entire species disappear from history. They believed themselves to be unstoppable. They believed that their empire would last forever. They were wrong. The human attack came not like a hammer but like a surgeon's knife. They did not waste ships on empty space. They did not burn planets for show. Every strike was precise. Every target was chosen with cold, careful purpose. The humans had studied for 3 centuries, and they knew exactly where to cut. On the first day, the orbital defense network around there fell. This was the greatest achievement of their civilization, a web of weapons platforms and shield generators that had protected Prime for 3,000 years. No enemy had ever penetrated it. The humans broke through in 16 hours. Admiral commanded the assault from the bridge of the Eternal Vigil. She did not smile when the defenses fell. She did not celebrate. She simply nodded and gave the next order. Move to the shipyards. Begin elimination. The shipyards on their second world were the largest in the sector. They could build 100 warships a year. They had been the foundation of military power for generations. Human ships surrounded them like wolves circling prey. They did not demand surrender. They did not negotiate. They opened fire, and within 3 hours, the shipyards were nothing but expanding clouds of metal and fire. The High Command sent desperate messages to their allies. No one answered. The galaxy was watching, and the galaxy was afraid. No one wanted to stand between humanity and its target. On the 4th day, General led the ground assault on the first labor camp. She was a small woman with gray hair and scars across her arms from decades of combat. Her soldiers followed her because she always went first into danger. She never asked them to do anything she would not do herself. The camp was built on a frozen moon, surrounded by ice and darkness. Guards watched the perimeter with weapons ready. They had been told that humans were soft, that they would never risk their soldiers in ground combat. When the first human dropships appeared in the sky, the commander laughed. "Ground troops against our fortifications. This is suicide." His voice came through the communication channel. "This is General of the Terran Liberation Force. You have 5 minutes to lay down your weapons and release your prisoners. After that, we will not be taking prisoners ourselves." They laughed and opened fire. 5 minutes later, every guard in the camp was dead. The humans moved through the fortifications like ghosts, appearing from shadows, striking without warning, disappearing before they could respond. They did not fight fair. They did not fight honorably. They fought to win, and they won completely. Found the prisoners in underground cells. They were thin and tired, their bodies broken by months of hard labor. But when they saw the human soldiers, something changed in their eyes. Hope. The thing they had lost was returning. One elderly male stepped forward. In his hands he held something old and faded. A flag. The same flag had held in the video, passed from prisoner to prisoner, kept safe through all the horror. "You came," he whispered. "After all this time you came." Knelt before him just as Captain had knelt before Elder Bora 3 centuries ago. "We always come," she said. "We never forget." But they would not surrender. Their high command believed they could outlast the humans. They believed that galactic pressure would force a ceasefire. They sent their remaining fleets to attack human supply lines. They fortified their core worlds. They prepared for a long war. They did not understand what they were facing. On the 52nd day, Admiral authorized the use of humanity's most terrible weapon. It was called the Stellar Lance. It was not a bomb or a missile. It was a focused beam of gravitational force so powerful that it could tear a planet apart from the inside. Humanity had built it long ago, hoping they would never need to use it. They had kept it secret from the galaxy. Now, the secret was about to be revealed. Aimed it at the military heart of the Dominion. This was where the generals lived. This was where the war plans were made. This was where the orders to enslave had been signed. Her voice echoed across all channels. "This is Admiral to the people of, you have 6 hours to evacuate. We do not kill civilians. We are not monsters. But your military command, your weapons factories, your war machines, all of it ends today. 6 hours. Use them wisely." They did not believe. They thought it was a bluff. Their commanders stayed in their bunkers, confident that no weapon could reach them underground. 6 hours passed. The Stellar Lance fired. It did not look impressive at first. Just a thin beam of light connecting a human ship to the planet's surface. But then the ground began to shake. Mountains started to crack. The ocean on the eastern continent boiled away in minutes. The military bunkers, buried deep underground, were crushed as the planet's own weight turned against them. The entire continent sank into itself. Millions of tons of rock and metal collapsed inward, swallowing everything the military had built. Factories vanished. Command centers disappeared. 10,000 years of military power was erased in less than an hour. They surrendered within 60 minutes. Their emperor, speaking from his palace on Prime, broadcast his surrender across all channels. His voice was shaking. "We accept all terms, please, no more." Admiral watched the broadcast in silence. Then she gave her final order. "Bring the home." The war that would become known as the 70 Days was over. The Dominion, which had terrorized the galaxy for 10,000 years, was broken. Their military was gone. Their empire was shattered. They would never threaten anyone again. And across the galaxy, every species that had watched the destruction asked themselves the same question. What would humanity do for us if we showed them kindness? And what would they do to us if we showed them cruelty? The human ships came to space not as conquerors but as builders. They brought food and medicine and seeds. They brought construction equipment and building materials. They brought doctors and engineers and farmers who wanted to help. Most of all, they brought the survivors home. 12,000 had been taken by the 12,000 had survived the labor camps, the cold cells, the endless work. Now they stood on the soil of there again, breathing the air their ancestors had breathed, looking up at the same stars that had watched over their people for countless generations. Many of them wept. Some fell to their knees and pressed their faces to the ground, as if trying to prove to themselves that this was real, that they were truly home. Others simply stood in silence, too overwhelmed to do anything but exist in this moment. Admiral walked through the crowds alone. She had removed her military uniform and wore simple civilian clothes. She did not want them to see her as a warrior. Today, she wanted to be something else. Today, she wanted to be the descendant of those 40,000 humans who had been saved 3 centuries ago. She found Elder on the same hill where Captain had made his promise long ago. The old woman sat on a simple wooden bench, looking out at the fields that were slowly turning green again. Human machines worked in the distance, clearing the burned soil, planting new crops. The sound of their engines mixed with the wind like a strange kind of music. Was holding the flag, the same flag from the Wanderer's Hope. It was more faded now, more worn, but still whole, still preserved. "May I sit?" asked. Nodded without turning. "Please." They sat together in silence for a long time. The sun was setting, painting the sky in colors of orange and purple. In the distance, children were playing in the fields, their laughter carrying on the wind. It was the first time they had laughed in months. "We are sorry," said finally. "We should have come sooner, we should have been watching, we should have." Raised a thin hand to stop her. "You came, that is what matters, you came." She turned to look at the human admiral and her large eyes were wet with tears. "Do you know what kept us alive in the camps? It was not hope. Hope is a fragile thing and we're very good at breaking fragile things. It was not faith in the galaxy because the galaxy had abandoned us." She touched the flag gently like a mother touching a sleeping child. "It was this flag, this promise." Did not know what to say. She had commanded fleets. She had destroyed armies. She had shattered a world. But sitting here, listening to this elderly alien speak about a promise made by a man 3 centuries dead, she felt small and humbled. "My grandmother told me the story," continued. Her grandmother told her. The strange aliens with their bleeding hands and their fierce eyes. The captain who knelt on our floor and swore that humanity would remember. We passed the story down through generations. We kept this flag safe through every winter, every storm, every hardship. She smiled, and her smile was like sunrise after a long night. And when they burned our homes and killed our people and put us in chains, I held this flag and said the words my family had preserved for 300 years. Humanity remembers. When you call, they will answer. Tears were running down's face now. She did not try to hide them. They laughed at me, said, "They told me I was a fool. They told me no one was coming. They told me I would die alone in their camps, forgotten by the galaxy, forgotten by everyone." She looked up at the sky where human ships still orbited, watching over the moons like guardian angels. And then you came. 3 centuries later you came. Took the old woman's hand in her own. "We will always come. That is what it means to be human. We remember. The kindness, the cruelty, all of it. We carry it with us like stones in our pockets. And when the time comes to pay our debts, we pay them in full." Squeezed her hand. "The galaxy thinks you did this to send a message. They think you destroyed to make the other empires fear you." "And what do you think?" asked. The old woman smiled again, and this time her smile reached her eyes. "I think you did this because an old captain cut his hand and made a promise to a stranger who gave him food. I think you did this because humanity believes that kindness should be repaid with kindness, and cruelty should be answered with justice." She paused. "I think you are the strangest species in the galaxy, and I am very glad you are our friends." They sat together until the stars came out, 2 old women from different worlds, holding hands on a hill where a promise had been made and kept. In the Hall of Debts, deep beneath the surface of Earth's moon, a clerk made a notation in the ancient ledger. The entry, which had glowed golden for 300 years, finally dimmed. Beside it, the clerk wrote 2 words: "Debt repaid." But even as she wrote, a new entry appeared on the wall. This one glowed red, the color of blood, the color of warning. The Dominion, harm to protected species. Status, outstanding. Because humanity also never forgets a wrong. The 70 days of war had taught thee about human power, but the years that followed would teach them about human memory. Every year, on the anniversary of the liberation, human ships would appear in space. They would not fire. They would not speak. They would simply hang in the darkness, watching, reminding. The empire, which had once ruled 40 star systems, slowly crumbled. Their conquered peoples, inspired by what humanity had done for them, began to resist. Their allies abandoned them. Their economy collapsed. Within 50 years, the Dominion was nothing but a memory, a cautionary tale told to children across the galaxy. And in every version of that tale, the same message appeared. Show kindness to humanity, and they will move heaven and earth to repay you. Show cruelty to those they love, and they will move heaven and earth to bury you beneath them. On the moons, now green and thriving under human protection, Elder lived to see her 120th birthday. On that day, she walked to the hill where she had sat with Admiral so many years ago, and she planted a tree. She called it the Promised Tree, and she watered it with her own tears. Her greats still tend that tree today. And every year, human visitors come to stand beneath its branches, to remember the debt that was owed and the debt that was paid. Because humanity never forgets. Not the kindness, not the cruelty, not ever